In this assignment, you're going to be composing a duet for you to play with a friend. In this example, the duet is going to be for a flute and a clarinet. You're going to start in the first phrase by using chord tones. For reference, each of the chords is annotated where you can click on this little box and it'll show you what notes you can choose from for each instrument. The notes for the clarinet have been transposed from concert pitch into written pitch for the clarinet. So in our first measure, I'm going to choose some notes here for our clarinet. I'm going to start with some half notes. And then for our flute, maybe we'll start a C. And to switch that octave, I can hold my command key and press the down arrow. So for the next measure, again for reference, I can click on the annotation. And maybe for this measure, I'm going to give our clarinet the quarter notes and our flute maybe the half notes. Maybe 2. And I'll continue that pattern for the first phrase. So in the next measure, we'll give the flute the F. And again, I can command up arrow to switch that octave. And to end out our first phrase, we'll give our flute some more half notes and give our clarinet those quarter notes. And if we're not quite ready to go over the break for the clarinet, we can always pull these notes down an octave. So now we have our first phrase of our duet, and we can go back and listen to it and see how it sounds. Okay, so far so good. So for the next phrase, I think what I'd like to do is take the same melodies I've composed up here and take the clarinet line and maybe give it to the flute. So if I hold my shift key and first click on my edit to get back to the edit window, I'll click on the first measure, then hold my shift key and click on the fourth measure to highlight. Then I'll hold my command key and type the letter C to copy. I'll then come down to the flute in the next phrase, click on this first measure, hold my command key, and then type the letter V. And it's going to plug in the notes for the flute. Now, to shift this up an octave, again, I can hold my command key, press the up arrow, and it will shift the entire flute part up an octave. If any of the notes need to be adjusted, you can always click and use that command up and down arrow to shift those octaves around as needed. Okay, then I'm going to come back up here to my first phrase, click on the first measure, hold my shift key, click on the fourth in the flute part, then hold my command key, press the letter C to copy. Then I come down to the next phrase, click on the first measure of my clarinet part, hold my command key and type the letter V. And again, I'm going to use my command key with the up and down arrows to shift the octave around to put it in the appropriate octave for my clarinet and flute player. So now I can listen to everything that we've had composed so far. Okay, so far so good. So what I'm going to do now, the first part, we all used only chord tones to create the melody for our flute and clarinet. But for the second repetition of this chord progression, first I'm going to click on my first flute measure, hold the shift key, and then click on the 8th measure on the clarinet staff. Then hold the command key, type the letter C. Now I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to click on the flute measure at measure 9, and I'm going to hold my shift key and also click to select the clarinet at measure 9. Then I'm going to hold my command key and type the letter V. And that's going to copy the parts from the first half into the second half. But in the second half of the composition, I want to add some non-chord tones in to give it a little more rhythmic variety and some ornamentation to our melody. So I'm going to start with the flute, change this to an 8th note, and then add a D. Change this next note to an 8th note, add the F. I think I'll keep the G there. Change my C, and since I'm going to the B, maybe I'll jump below it before I get to the B. So in this measure, I think I'll keep my half note, but on the second one, I'm going to change this to a quarter, maybe add a G. And again, what I'm doing is just giving you my ideas of how I might put this together. You should certainly make different choices on the notes and even the rhythms that you might use. So I encourage you to experiment with some different options that you might try going into this. So I think here I'll keep those two half notes. Now, if I come back to my clarinet part, and we'll add some notes in here. And again, just kind of maintain the same little idea that I started in the flute line. So here, I think I'm going to maybe, let's delete that note and turn this into a half note to give us a nice little cadence point. So now I can go back and listen to what I've created so far here by clicking the play button. Great. So if I'm happy with that, what I'm going to do now is hold my shift key and click on measure 12 of the flute part. Oh, I've got to get back into my edit window again. So let me click on the 9th measure of the flute, hold my shift key and click on the 12th measure. Now I'm going to hold the command key and type the letter C. Then I'm going to come down to the clarinet at measure 13, click on this measure, hold my shift key and click on measure 16. Now I'm going to hold my command key and type the letter V to paste the flute part into my clarinet part on the bottom. Again, I can use my command down arrow to shift the octave if I need to put that in a more comfortable octave for the clarinet player. Then I'm going to come back up to my clarinet at measure 9, highlight that measure, hold the shift key, and click in measure 12. I'll hold my command key, type the letter C again, then come to measure 13 to click on the flute in measure 13, holding the shift key and clicking again at measure 16, and then once again using command V to type the part in, and again holding the command key and the up arrow to shift the octave. The command key is really handy to have. Now, here at the end, I think I'll make one last adjustment, that I'm going to actually add a measure. And on this last measure, I'm going to finish it with the chord that we started on. So I'm going to highlight this first chord. I'm going to use Command C to copy, and then I'm going to click, oops, not sure what happened there. Come down to our last measure here in the piano part, use my shift key to highlight both measures, and then command V to paste. And then here in my clarinet and my flute, I'm going to add one last note. So for the flute, I think I'm going to add, for the clarinet, I'm going to add here we go, a whole note on, oops, here we go. And then in our flute, I'm going to add a C. And it'll take just a moment for NoteFlight to update the layout. But now I have a completed duet for flute and clarinet. So let's give a listen from the beginning. Great. So if you're happy with your composition, you can now take your project and share it with a friend. If you have the chance to get together and practice your two parts, you can then record your parts right into NoteFlight and then submit it to your teacher for assessment and feedback. I hope you have fun composing this duet and making music with a friend.